everyone, my name is Gelie, and thank you for tuning in to Grit Don't Quit, where we talk about all the unglamorous parts of the entrepreneurial journey. And I am here today with Jesse, and Jesse is the founder of Optymize, which in the community, that's what he might be known for. But Jesse had such an interesting journey of entrepreneurship and just his personal journey. So we're just going to get right into it. Okay. So Jesse, I remember, one time we were hanging out and you're like, Gelie, I have this idea. And you went on to tell me about this center, which now we know as Optymize, but back then it was just in conception. And it's been so interesting to see you go from conception to actually now opening it and creating this, for lack of a better word, like a magical place for so many of us to come and experience. Right. So now I've talked in a whole bunch of abstract terms, but why don't you tell us a little bit about Wim Hof and how you discovered breath work and what Optymize does for people. And from that, we'll get back into the entrepreneurial.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here.
Of course.
And great to be here. So Optymize is a center focused on wealth and healing using the elements of nature. Mm-hmm. And our slogan is Optimize Mind, Body, Breath. So we're really trying to help people take control of their own health and align their mind, body, and spirit through natural modalities such as heat exposure, cold exposure, compression therapy, breath work, red light therapy, and all these different modalities. But really the magic sauce in it all is the community and the people that come together.
Yes.
In this, because so many people are craving that that connection to themselves, which our therapies help, and to other people as well.
Yeah. So. No, absolutely. And and for those that aren't familiar with all that you explained, because it's kind of in the alternative area of healing. So if you're not familiar, you're not familiar. But what I'm interested in is, how did you find your path, like your own way to Wim Hof and breath work? And I know you have this incredible, like you are an athlete, you were a professional athlete. So take me to that point and kind of what your physical journey has been to now where you're at a point where you're leading an entire community and you're tying in probably some of those things that you learned as an athlete and now pulling in, breath work and these other alternative natural healing remedies for people to just live in a better state of mind.
Right. Yeah. So I competed for about 10 years as a professional athlete in mixed martial arts and had a childhood growing up of competing really on in a combat sports. And so what a learning environment that was to really face fears and go into a primal environment where you got such an adrenaline rush, but trying to hurt somebody else, to win. So it was very violent, but it did help me connect with myself in a really unique way. But as I got older and accumulated injuries, and that part of my life was coming to a close and did come to a close, I was looking at what was next. And I really didn't know what was next. I had started a business in 2008, a commercial landscape business, but things became stagnant after my fighting career. And I wasn't really sure how to get those feelings met and feeling grounded and connected to myself. And so I started searching different exercises, different health routines, all these different things, and nothing was really hitting the spot. And I was very weak in the cold. That was one of my weaknesses. And so I did see this gentleman named Wim Hof, and I saw him doing all these feats to do with the cold, and that's what drew me in, being somebody that was into overcoming challenges and facing fears. That's the initial draw to the cold water.
Wait, but hold on. But you just said something right there that I find so fascinating. You were weak in the cold, so you seeked out the cold in order to get stronger? Like if you're weak in the cold, why did you choose to put yourself in the cold?
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, I learned at a young age, or growing up, that just the strength of the mind-body connection, and so, and I learned that the most difficult things were really the most valuable and rewarding to me. So that stayed with me, and so that weakness drew me in because I knew it seemed difficult.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and it had all these other gifts to give. So it wasn't the cold water training that I promote and that Wim Hof promotes and many others. Really is about looking inward and not necessarily overcoming a challenge, but really surrendering to the present moment and acceptance. And that was something that I was also struggling with in my life, where I was with my relationships. And I definitely learned a really valuable lesson that in order to move forward, it's really important to accept where you're at with the present moment. And when we fight to change the present moment, we become anxious or depressed and uneasy.
Wow.
So.
No, and that, I mean, you just said so much gold right there. Like literally, like that was incredible. So as you're experiencing this newfound, these newfound parts of yourself with the cold, how did that prep you, or did it prep you for, because eventually you're like, Optymize, like this is what I'm going to do. So how do you go from landscaping company to, I discovered cold and breath work to now Optymize? Walk me through those dots.
Yeah, great. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So I was really passionate about health for a long time, and much of it stems from my eldest brother's struggles with mental and physical illness. So he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was bipolar as well. And so I saw this in my later childhood growing up, and didn't pay it so much attention. It was just there, and something that I did think about and worry about. And in 2009, I discovered this school in my studies and researching performance and health, and called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And that was a school that I attended and went through and graduated to, and it really exposed me to a lot of different dietary theories, but more importantly, the idea of bio-individuality, which is everybody's unique, and also that things are, besides food, are really a strong part of nutrition and health. So things that we, our relationships, the stresses of life, not just what we eat.
Right.
And so that became, like, as I had this business and I was growing my landscape business, I was still very invested in learning about health and studying that, and began to coach people in health. And I was a health coach on the side, and really just supplemented training. And I was constantly learning more about myself and different trainings. So when I became a Wim Hof Method instructor back in 2017, his modality really sync some things up for me. And I had been practicing yoga for about 15 years at the time, but I wanted to do something with this and align my passion with my business. And that's how I came to Optymize.
And that's when you came to
And
Optymize.
started putting it down on paper. And I still have the piece of paper today.
Frame it.
And it was it was like 2018, maybe early, and I wrote down some specifics about Optymize, and that was really the beginning of what is Optymize today.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. That's incredible. So what I'd like to ask you, you have such a unique background, and we covered just a little bit of it here today, but for those entrepreneurs that don't have your makeup, that haven't experienced what you've experienced. Again, I mean, being a professional athlete, especially in an MMA environment, where, like you said, is a primal environment, what could they borrow from you and your mindset to help them get through some of those dark moments? Like, what piece of advice could you leave them with?
Yeah, great question. There's so much, but one of the most important things is that, having grit and work ethic and things like that are of course so necessary, but I think it's super important to know when the time is to fight and when the time is to accept and surrender. That used to be a bad word for me. I would never surrender.
Right.
But it's taken on a new meaning
Right.
for me. So to me, it means more acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
And so that's something I've learned in this recent business is that it doesn't always have to be a fight, and to enjoy the process. Set goals, but what's the point of setting goals and achieving them if you don't enjoy where you're at? I mean, what's the point of doing anything?
Absolutely, 100%. And I think this last piece you mentioned is you learned that from the cold, as being in the present, which you mentioned earlier. So I love how you just tie everything in. So, but yeah, no, Jesse, thank you so much for being here today and having this candid conversation. I mean, I know we can talk on and on and on.
Yeah.
But thank you all for tuning in into this episode, which was produced by Inspired Media 360 TV. So head on over there for more content and all our contact information. And until next time, don't quit.